Shalom, shalom, shalom to everyone watching. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero with Sephardi Kosher Supervision. Just to bring you an update, as we know, when dealing with a kosher Kashrut Agency, many times they use, like I would call it, Mafia techniques or methods in order to coerce a business in doing what it is told to do. Now, with the case that I mentioned in my last video, which had to do with the VAD of the 5 towns on Long Island, the accusation by the merchant against the Kashrut Agency that they were operating like a mafia-like method in controlling the kosher turf battle, including extortion, including preventing them from getting kosher supervision unless they pay the expensive fee. In one case in particular that I know of, one particular kosher agency had basically told the owner that they wanted $15,000 before they would even consider recertifying them for the certification. This is very typical, and what we're reading here from the VAD of 5 towns, we're going to see some key detail on the report, which is basic in many of these Kashrut agencies. Key details from the report, and it's just going to be a brief review of what the lawsuit entailed. And it's very important to understand that, and especially if you have a kosher business, you need to follow a lot of these procedures and steps. You need to make sure that you do have receipts to be able to show both the Jewish court as well as the secular court. Here are some of the basic things that one had to do with the case of Shimishuri Charcoal Kitchen Restaurant and the Kashrut Agency of the Va'ad of the 5 towns, and other businesses that have been taking care of steps to suing a secular court after attempts to use traditional rabbinical court failed. Now, it's kind of frustrating that a person may want to take a Kashrut agency to Bet Din, which is literally the Jewish judicial system that's established in a lot of the religious communities. And one should not go directly and sue without first going through the steps to make sure you're covered. Number one, key details from the report of the Shimishuri Charcoal Chicken against the Va'ad of the 5 towns. First of all, the accusation of the merchant was that businesses claims that the Va'ad engaged in extortion and retaliation after they sought an alternative kosher supervision or complained about the fees and service. Number two, difficulty in using rabbinical courts. One of the things you'll find if you're currently under a hashgacha, especially here in Florida or anywhere really in the USA, is you're going to find that many bet dins are biased because they have members or individuals that serve in the different kashrut agencies or Va'ad. Businesses that sued the Va'ad had exhausted the options with the rabbinical court system, which was unable to resolve the dispute. This, of course, brings the merchant to a point of desperation, which you should never get desperate, frustrated, or angry. But just know that you have other alternatives. If in good faith you attempted to use a rabbinical court and that rabbinical court did not solve the situation, you ought to then seriously consider taking the Kashrut Agency to court and sue them for losses. Number two, difficulty in using rabbinical courts. Businesses that sued the VAD had exhausted options with rabbinical court, which was unable to resolve the dispute. Number three, retaliation. Retaliation from the Kashrut agencies have many ways in which they do that, including sending out letters to its members and advising the public that the merchant is no longer with the Kashrut Agency and is strongly recommended not to do business with them. This is a form of damaging the business where the owner will lose his business. And I've seen multiple owners lose their business over this situation. One business owner even claimed that after the dispute, the Vad retaliated by telling local synagogues that his store was not kosher. Now, you can say that they're no longer under your kashrut supervision. It's not a problem with that. But to say that the store is not kosher is an outright lie, and it's causing damage to the business. And thus, you have a basis to be able to sue them in secular court. The legal action that the Vad took was granted permission by rabbinical court to be sued in secular court. In other words, it was given permission to be able to sue, leading to the lawsuit from the affected business, such as Shimishuri. The purpose of the Vad, so if anybody has any mistake, the case highlighting a conflict between the regulatory authority of a local Vad, which is a religious council or group responsible for overseeing the kosher certification, and the business interests of the restaurant seeking the kosher certification. In other words, there is an interest from the owner of a business to maintain the kashrut certification. A kashrut letter should never be withdrawn unless there is proof, without a doubt, that they had violated the rules of kashrut and maintain it. If there is no proof, it's just because perhaps the rabbi doesn't like the way the owner didn't smile at him or gave him attitude, that's not a reason to pull the certificate. And at that point, they are in breach of whatever agreement, which are normally a 1 year to 1 year, an annual agreement of the certification. Of course, they have to pay additional fees in the event they are no longer with them. Interesting, the Long Island rabbis accused of Mafia method is one that the lawsuit claimed the rabbis were behind. The Vad Hashkashrut ordered observant residents to stop eating at the restaurant, which was serving some delicious chicken. And here we find that about 2 weeks ago, the judge allowed the lawsuit, which makes this even a more fascinating situation of the five towns. If you see this video and you're one of the attorneys on this case, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to interview you, because a lot of our viewers who tend to eat at kashrut locations have issues with the different standard. And this lawsuit had several claims against the popular deli, even preceding it, because of quote-unquote tainted deli meat, which unalived a husband in New Jersey. And you see that this is full of issues. My friends, getting certification for a kashrut business is not that difficult. What makes it difficult is many times the rabbis that basically they're empowered to be able to threat, and as you saw, be able to tell the business how to run its business. And that should not be. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My number is 786-306-8211. I'm 100% in favor of having kosher certification in businesses that run kosher. And you ought to seek a kosher certification. The issue becomes the reputation of the kosher certification, or hashkacha, that many times the new ones that are starting up, or one that perhaps is circulating, they began to do a blockage for monopoly. Now, I'm interested to know if you are an attorney, because in many of the cases they set aside the issue of the religious claim that because it's a religious system that it cannot be sued in secular court. And I think there is a way to sue a entity who claims to be religious while violating monopoly laws. They have a complete control over the business. For example, here in Florida, there are two particular Kashrut Agency that they speak to each other, they correlate with each other, so that if A basically pulled out the certificate, B will not issue them certificate unless A says it's okay, and vice versa. That's monopolizing the entire business and not allowing any other to come in and say, okay, we're going to do this. The reason those that are not accepted is because they have an agreement within themselves, you might say a correlation, so that no one is able to get into the kashrut business. That happened in New York, that happens in California, and obviously that happens almost across the state in the United States, until there is a lawsuit that would be able to challenge that claim that just because they're a religious entity, that they're exempt from these type of business rules, which should not be. They should be open to such a situation where a merchant can be able to sue a kashrut agency by taking away their certificate and going straight to the law. But obviously, we Jews understand that before you can do that, you have to get permission from a Beit Din to be able to proceed against any religious institution. It's a buddy system, and this is what basically is operating a lot of the abuses. And we know once it's open, those abuses will be brought down quickly, fast, because then they'll realize that they have to answer to the authority, perhaps, of the government. And no one wants to get involved with having to face lawsuits from the government. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero. Keep your business clean. As a matter of fact, this is exactly what we're asked to do. Did you do your business? Did you run your business kosher? Did you basically do business the clean way? That's what God's going to ask us on Rosh Hashanah. Or were they cheating or extorting or doing bad things behind the businesses? Vice versa. The business, too, has to comply to the wishes of the Kashrut Agency in order to ensure to its consumer that the food being served is, in fact, kosher. It's like what I said in one of my publications, that they put into question 8 particular businesses saying that it wasn't kosher, that you don't go there because it's quote-unquote not kosher. And this is the typical response from many of the kashrut agencies once they either drop their certification or they just decide to go to another one that perhaps is much more economical. So think about that. If you lose your certification of kashrut, don't get frustrated. Contact a Beit Din, try to resolve it that way. If it doesn't work, then take them to court and sue the heck out of them. Because definitely if they lose or pull your certification, you lose your business, you lose your livelihood, and no Jewish business, none, ethos, should be harmed in such a way that the owner loses his shirt off his back. That's not the way the idea of kashrut started. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero, and may Hashem bless you and strengthen you, and may you have a wonderful Shabbat Shalom.